Hey there, guys. Welcome to my latest review for Doctor Who. Oh, wait. No. Wrong show. Uh, where are my dragons? Ah, here they are. And, nope, not Game of Thrones. Wrong show still. Let's see. Oh, right. Teen Wolf. Okay. Forgive my moving camera. Okay, so this is for the season 3 episode 5, titled Frayed. Okay, so starts out, we see everyone on a bus, and Boyd and Isaac are talking, and Isaac is like, "No, Boyd, don't think about it. Don't even think about it." And Boyd's like, "Oh, not like you weren't thinking about it either." And we're trying to figure out, like, okay, what are they talking about? We don't know. And then we see Ethan with Danny, and Danny's all like, "Oh, is something wrong?" Ethan's like, no, I'm good. Okay, whatever. Then we see Scott, and he starts having flashbacks of him and Derek and the Alpha, I think his name's Ennis or something, and they're fighting, and then flashes back, and then Styles is giving Scott words just to, like, give him the meaning for SATs or whatever. And then Scott's like in pain because apparently he's not healing. So, like, oh, that's nasty. And then Scott's like, oh, it's just because it's from an alpha. And then Styles is like, oh, then why are Boyd and Isaac okay? And then Scott looks out the window from like a 90s music video all sad, and he's like, I can't believe Derek's dead. What the fuck? Really? Derek's dead? I knew a major character was going to die, but I didn't think it was going to be this soon, or him, and I'm just like, okay, something's definitely wrong here. So then the credits play, dun 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 dun, like, all that fun stuff. That's cool. Then we see Lydia and Allison, and they're talking, and then it goes to another flashback, and then Allison, or it's a flashback of Scott and Allison, and she's basically saying, like, oh, I can totally take you on, and Scott's just, like, humoring her. He's like, yeah, sure. And they twirl around and kick and punch and would totally lead up to some angry wall sex, but it's like, that didn't happen. Scott's just saying, oh, I'm scared, you should be scared too. Okay, cool. Then Scott gets in the elevator, and Deucalion's there. For like a split second, they show that, and then Scott comes into Derek's loft, and he's like, why do we always have to kill people? Why can't we just try the other way for once?" And then Peter was agreeing, and Cora was being a bitch. She's like, okay. Then the kid Jared on the bus was getting carsick, and the coach was just telling him not to throw up. And then Boyd is still pissed at Ethan, and then does another flashback, and then Cora was like, oh, why do we need Scott? And then Derek's like, because we need him, because he saved you. And then Peter said something, I forget, he's being sassy like usual. And then it shows Allison and Lydia back in their car, and she's like, oh, so you're not with Aiden? And she's like, what's none of your business? Then that shows a flashback, and they start having angry, like, not angry, but just, well, I guess it could be angry, like angry school desk sex. I don't know. She's like, oh, put your hands somewhere where they'll be useful, and he mounts her and whatever. So that's cool. Then Boyd starts going apeshit. Claws, eyes, everything is like they're coming out. And then, Kalian starts making threats like, oh, well, you're gonna have to start killing people, this and that, and you can't beat me, blah blah blah. Scott's like, I'm not gonna kill anybody. Whatever. And then it shows Derek falling off the edge of the building thing onto some escalators, and he's dead. Well, shit, he's dead. And then Cora and Peter are at the site from where they thought Derek's body was. Both the bodies are Derek's body and Ennis's body. They're both gone. And then Peter's like, oh, well, you're just trying to figure out which one is alive and which one's dead, and, or if they're both dead or if they're both alive, whatever. And she's like, oh, I don't trust you. And Peter's like, well, I don't trust you either. And very distrustful family. Well, I guess when you have a psychotic uncle that kills your sister and then a fire, like, kills everybody, and yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. And then Scott gets up to go try to calm Boyd down, and then he's thinking of what Deaton told him, saying, oh, don't try to stop them, you need to lead them, and it's like, okay, I'll become Mufasa and lead my pride, cool. And then, Scott's like, Boyd, calm your shit. Just put the claws away. If you try to kill Ethan here, then you're screwed, we're all screwed, whatever. So Boyd's like, okay, fine, I'll calm down. So he does. And then Isaac, being the concerned boyfriend that he is, like, oh, Scott, you're hurt. You're still hurt. And then Scott's like, oh, no, I'll be fine. That's just how concerned he is. He's like, oh, you're hurt. And then Styles was eyeing Ethan, saying how he didn't like how he kept looking at his phone, and he has an evil look to his eye, or something. So he starts sending Danny like a bajillion text messages, and he's like, oh, find out what he's waiting for, what the message is. And Danny's like 1,000% done with Styles' shit. He's just like, no. And then he's getting like a bajillion texts. His phone keeps bleeping and bleeping. And then, so finally he texts back, he's like, oh, waiting for someone, apparently family, or afraid someone will die or not last the night. Something along those lines. I'm getting it wrong, whatever. And then Callie and Aiden bring in Ennis to Deaton's, and then that one chick whose name I miss something, I don't know, she's that one girl always with Deaton, I forget her name. She's like, oh, open the door, and he's like, no. He's just like, no. And then Callie, she's like, oh, what if I killed her? He's like, not in here, you won't. She's like, oh, shit. Okay, fine. And then, the coach and Styles they're arguing, and he's like, oh, I hate the coach. Because he won't stop for a rest stop, whatever. And then he calls Lydia. He's like, oh, Scott's not healing. And she's like, oh, yeah, we're at the movies. And he's like, I know you've been following us. She's like, okay. And they're like, oh, try to get the coach to pull over. And then Styles is completely losing his shit. He's just like, okay! So, then he sits next to that Jared kid and gives the creepiest smile ever. It's like, "Hey, Jared," and just does this weird ass face, and don't know what he does, but makes Jared completely puke his brains out. And then they take Scott into the restroom, and Lydia's using all these big words, psychological, blah, just all these words and styles is like, what are you saying? She's like, oh, it's all in his head. So she's like, oh, we should just stitch him up, help him believe that it's healing. So she does, and then Allison's trying to put the thread through, or the thread through the little needle, and her hands are shaking really bad, and she's freaking out. She's like, oh, I can't do it, and then her mother like shows up, and creepy ass mother, I don't like her, and in her own twisted way, she's like actually helping, and she's like, you need to calm down, you need to stop crying, put the damn needle through the thread, or thread through the needle. Yeah, that works better. And then she finally does it. She's sewing him up, and then she's like, "Scott, Scott." She thinks she's dead, which isn't cool. And then no, my notes. Oh, then it goes to Scott's room. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Goes to Scott's room, and then he turns around, and there's Isaac just standing there all suave and whatnot, and be like, oh, where are you going? And Scott's like totally nervous and whatnot, and he's just like, I'm going to eat. I'm hungry. And then Isaac's like, oh, cool, I'll go with you. And he's like, no, I can eat alone. And Isaac's like, oh, then what are you going to eat? Scott's like, Mexican. And then Isaac's like, I love Mexican. So he says he's not eating alone, so they get on Scott's bike, and then it's just a lovely moment. And then they stop, and then Scott's like, yeah, we're just going to talk to him. And then Isaac's like, you know what? I'm actually hungry now. Yep, we know what you're hungry for. What? And then they leave Lydia's car, and she's like freaking out. Her poor car has been through enough. It's been hit by a deer, and now it's being left in the middle of nowhere. And Lydia's car, that's the best character. And then it shows another flashback where Scott and Isaac are at the building thing. And then it's like, oh, we came alone. And Deucalion's like, no, you brought your pack, I brought mine, and his alphas start popping up everywhere. Cool. Then it goes back, and Lydia's like, oh, yeah, Scott, Styles told Isaac what happened to you, and now he's freaking out. Or Scott thought it was Boyd, and it turned out being Isaac, and Isaac is totally just pissed and thinking, oh, yeah, my boyfriend's hurt, so he's like totally just pounding on Ethan, and this kid has like a fetish for pain or something, because like every time he gets beat up, he's just like smiles, blood oozing from his mouth. Like, I love this. This is fun. Whatever. So Isaac kicks Ethan's ass, and then Boyd's just standing there he's all like, oh yeah, that's my boy kicking that little alpha man's butt. Like, he didn't care. He was pleased. He was happy. So then Scott does that whole Isaac thing again, and pure relief just washes over Isaac. He's just like, oh, my boyfriend, it's you. And then he does this whole like look over thing, and he's like, oh, you're alive, cool. And then Peter and Cora show up at Deaton's and they're looking for Derek, and they think that he might be inside or something, and Peter's like, oh nope, they're here. So, and then Deucalion kills Ennis with just like crushes his skull. That was disgusting, to say the least. It shows another flashback of the building fight thing. Boyd and Cora are fighting Ennis. Derek is fighting Callie. Scott and Isaac are fighting the Omega twin. Don't interrupt me. And then...
Is that the stuff you taking?
I think so. Yeah. Then Deucalion is telling Derek to kill Boyd, to kill one of them. So he's like, oh yeah, kill Boyd, then the rest can go. And then Derek's like, what do I do? What do I do? And Allison, being the bamf that she is, just shooting arrows all over the place, going all Robin Hood on us. Bam, 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 bam. Lights flickering. Deucalion's like, shield your eyes. I'm like, how do you even know that? You're blind, you idiot. Does he sense the light? I don't know. I don't know. Then shows another flash forward back thing. Allison's talking to her dad, and he's like, no, we protect our own, we're staying out of it, and you're staying out of it. And Allison's like, no, you're just protecting your own ass, and I don't have any more family, so I'm saving my friends. So cool. Then goes to the other battle thing, and then Scott charges and hits Ennis like right in the chest. They're all like big, freaking huge. Yeah, they hit each other, and Scott's eyes go red. What? He's not an alpha. I mean, not yet. Or anyway, but like they turn red for like a split second, and Allison's like, oh shit, what the fuck is happening? And then Derek and Ennis start fighting, and then Scott like hits his leg, and then they fall off the edge, and you hear this blam, like splat noise, and Scott's just like, he's dead. That was depressing. And then Lydia and Styles are talking about alpha werewolves versus this dark druid thing, and sacrifices and preparing for battle and all that fun stuff. And Allison's like talking to Scott, and he's like, yeah, I'm glad you didn't listen to me, and you ended up saving my ass. And then she's just looking at his eyes, and he's like, what? She's like, I'm just looking at your eyes and making sure you're still you. That's what her head is screaming. She's like, making sure you're still you. Then, last scene. Jennifer, the teacher, I forgot her formal title. Whatever. Jennifer. She gets in her car and she does this old key thing. Then Derek goes all under the dome on her, like bloody hand against the glass. And then he falls into the ground. And then she's like, holy shit, my man beast, I gotta help him. So she gets out and she's like, ah! She's awesome. She doesn't even freak out. She just gets out. She's like, oh shit, look at this. Gotta help my man. So yeah, and then it just ends there. So next week's episode is going to be messed up. Billy was telling me it deals with like a couple suicides or something. I don't know. And it doesn't help that I just had a dream that Isaac like hung himself, and I'm just like, yeah, that if I'm calling that right now, that is messed up. No, but apparently Isaac's getting like locked in another like coffin or icebox thing or something. I'm just like, leave him alone. He's like Will Graham. They're like tormented puppy dogs. They're just, ugh. Leave them alone. Leave Will and Isaac alone. It makes me so angry. And then Jennifer and Derek are gonna get it on, and apparently so is Danny and Ethan. Cool. We'll see what else happens, because apparently a lot of crazy stuff's gonna happen, so. That's all for this review. Hope you enjoyed it. Peace out, bitches.